Hi, I'm Tyson,
I'm Colin.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Adam.
and we're the Gamesmiths, and we've just gotten done playing Wise Guys and Lies, and we're going to start by going on a little bit of our thoughts, and we're going to start with Adam.
Thanks. So I'm a big time theme guy. I love the theme. I love mobsters, gangsters. Really fun. I like getting to be able to lie to one another in a kind of BS kind of way. That feels really nostalgic for me. Whenever a game builds on any kind of game that I played as a kid, like we've played some games that build on memory, or we play the games that build on like this one that builds on a good old classic game like BS, and maybe even a little bit of a war kind of feeling to it as well. I always love when a game can take something nostalgic like that and make it really interesting. I think you've done well with that here. I also liked the almost rock, paper, scissors feel of this beats this, which beats this, and how it all kind of ended with the police, and then it was just kind of done. So if I threw out a banker to draw more cards, then Colin could throw out a gangster to take away those cards, but then I could throw out a police to cancel his gangsters, but then it was just done. So I liked the multiple rebuttals. I always think that's fun in a game. Because it just continues on that suspense of like, well, I'm going to play this, and that's my answer to what you had, but then you throw something down, and we just keep going for a while. But I like how the police end that. So I also liked the three cards you had down guarding your big boss, it almost acting as life for your character. I loved how that was kind of marked out there. I liked being able to flip those cards over, and then they had a purpose. So I thought all of that worked really well. There was a few parts of the game that I felt were unbalanced, and I think after we've all spoken now, I think we've all felt like there's a few parts of the game that are unbalanced, but overall we feel like the game was really good. And Ryan, had said this earlier, but like when it's working, it's really working, and so I think that's good. But we do have some feedback on just some balancing, and then we have some ideas on potentially how to maybe tweak the design a little bit to maybe give a little bit more of that balance.
Right. And like Adam just said, when the game works, it works. And the biggest problem that we saw was that it tended to lose one player before it started working in all of the play tests that we did. And that's the biggest problem with the game, is you have this person who's going to be sitting out after losing the game for X amount of time. And we felt that it was just too long in this game. And that there are really two kind of ways to approach it to kind of fix that. Is you could either go reduce the time, and it all kind of comes down to the timing of the game, and right where it's at like 20 to 30 minutes for a hand is kind of right in the middle, and that's a bit of a problem. And we think it would probably be best to go one way or the other, and either lengthen the game and make it more difficult to eliminate players right away and let people know that they're going to be in for a longer game. So even if you are eliminated, you maybe got an hour of gameplay out of it or a half hour of gameplay out of it. So you still felt like you got to play. And then if you sit out for 15 minutes after that, that's fine, because you're in for a long game, and you kind of know that, and you still got a good chunk of play out of it. The other option is to go with a shorter game that is going to be played over multiple rounds. So you speed up the pace of the game. You have the individual games happen faster, so even if someone's eliminated on round one, they're not going to sit, or on the first go round, they're not going to sit for very long. And they don't feel like they've lost the game. They just feel like, oh, I lost a point here, but I'm going to be in the next game, And so I still have a vested interest in what's going on. So I'll watch this for the next few minutes while I'm waiting, and everything's moving very quickly, and people are lying and calling each other out on their lies. And so it's fun for me to watch, and then we're going to scoop up and play another one really fast. So we had a couple of suggestions specifically on how maybe we'd want to handle this. And I'm going to go ahead and let Tyson talk about how maybe we would suggest speeding the game up a little bit.
Yeah, and I just want to really quickly echo what both of Ryan and Adam have said about how when the game is working, it works really well, and we all really like that.
Yeah, and I'd actually like to point out real quick, sorry, that we played 3 hands of this, and we usually just play games through once, and we feel like we get it. And this one we felt like, oh man, we were having fun there for a second. We do want to play this again.
We want to get back into
that. Because that was good,
yeah.
and we want to get back into that. So we did all legitimately enjoy it, and very
Absolutely.
much. So, I'm sorry, continue.
No, absolutely. And I think there are things in it that highlight a lot of what is done well. So when Ryan talks about maybe shortening it, we don't mean we want you to take out any of the stuff that you've got in there, because we think you've got a lot of really great things in there that work really well. The problem that we're seeing more of is, just like Ryan said, is that there's the tendency for somebody to sit out for a long time. For 2 of the times we played, that was me, and it was not enjoyable whatsoever to sit around for any length of period, particularly when I could see how much fun they were having and being
Yeah.
like, but I want that. And
Yeah.
I haven't really gotten my fill of that yet. I think you already do stuff that helps to speed up the game, and I really wanted to highlight the FBI inquiry card that you have. I think that does a fantastic job at setting that clock and timer, and it's an elegant way to handle that speeding up of the deck. Additionally, making sure that nobody's cards who get eliminated go back into the deck also speeds up that, and it's just little things like that that I really admire about this design. But when it comes to the elimination, there's the problem of somebody sitting too long. So one thing that we thought of that could immediately fix that is you could reduce the amount of cards that are in the deck. We even discussed the potential of reducing it down to half.
That's kind of a number we just threw out, but
that may be
play
too
test,
much, but
right.
that may be too little. You'd have to
maybe
look
one
at it.
copy of each card instead of 2, or
right.
Yeah,
have a
balanced-
set number.
that goes to say that there are some cards that are at the right number, but some of the cards did feel a little bit high, I think. So you'll want to see which of the cards you would want to keep in there. But I'd feel strongly, not necessarily about the cutting of the deck, but at least of shortening the game if you want to provide that type of an experience. So if the experience you're looking to give is to create a fast, kind of deceptive,
Right.
engaging, quick play that people can get in and really want to play the next game as much as they're enjoying the first one, then I think you can do that. We talked a lot about Love Letter and how that does it really well. It has like 12 cards or something like that.
Right.
It has a very few amount of cards, which
So it forces each round to be very quick.
yeah, and everybody gets so few actions. This game does a lot of similar things, I think, but I wouldn't go obviously down that low. But making sure that you have enough life points, because that was important, I think, to all of us,
Right.
while still making sure that this deck is shuffling quicker and the FBI inquiry is happening more often, because
Right.
that was really exciting to us. You have to plan around that,
Right.
and you could use that as a strategy. As in our last game, you saw some of the people using that as a strategy to, well, I'm going to use the draw cards to make sure the gangster cards the banker cards to make sure that I'm drawing that deck and getting it down faster, because if I can whittle your life down, then it works really well. And I was impressed to see that Colin had the most health, and he was trying to get the cards down, but Adam somehow held it out and then fixed it in the end to make it so that he won that particular round. So it goes to show that not one strategy necessarily is going to be the this end-all be-all strategy.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of cool stuff with that. So ultimately, I guess what I'm trying to say is I love what the game can be and what it is when it's in those moments that it's in. I just don't love to sit out so long that it doesn't allow me to engage in that moment.
Right.
Just watching it is not nearly as fun unless, as Adam says, there's incentive for me to watch that match and make sure that there's things I can do.
Yeah, because I felt that the same. Being knocked out in the second game, I could have bluffed, but I'm a really bad bluffer. So that's if you
Right.
saw every single hand I played, I didn't lie about. I don't think a single thing, because that's just not the type of player I am. But being knocked out first and being like, oh shoot, well.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about it, and
Yeah.
no one else is going to do anything about it because they want me out of the game too. So,
Right.
it's completely individual. So I definitely felt that.
Well, there were two moments for me that it felt most out of balance. One was right at the start, the private investigator. Is that the card?
Private
Yes.
investigators, yeah.
That card felt like if you could couple that with the one that
The duplicators.
the duplicator.
Yeah.
Mall, the gun
Yeah,
mall.
Yeah,
gun mall.
yeah.
If you could pair those two, or if you had two private investigators, or any kind of version of that, which happened
Right.
every time
Pretty
with
rad,
us,
yeah.
there's really nothing you can do to stop that. It's very likely that that's just going to wipe someone out at the start. So that
Right.
is really felt unbalanced at the start of the game.
Not
And
only
then
that,
towards-
but they draw cards as well. That was just
but
like
it's those are the things. So it's fine if you want to speed up the overall pace of the game. These things become less of a problem if we're not going to last past turn 3 or 4 anyways, and so you can speed up.
But the other thing that was out of balance to me was towards once the game got going was the banker card, because anyone who controlled that many cards, like Colin, was so hard to beat. If he didn't go out on a limb there and try to challenge me at the end of our variant game, there was nothing I don't think either of us could have done to beat Colin, because he just had a massive hand and we couldn't. He could defend against anything, he could attack anything. And
I could have done multiple turns,
So
got
I even
more
think-
guys. Like I knew,
Right.
I just wanted to speed things
Well,
along
yeah, and
a little bit.
that's fine though, but that's also just winning the game with
Yeah.
one strategy.
Sure.
But we do think maybe a hand limit would also help there too. Is just limit the hand size, so players have to discard down and they have to choose what answers they want to keep. They can't just hold all the answers.
That's especially if you're wanting to keep the length of play longer rather than shorter. Those
Right.
types of things
So let's.
help that.
So yeah. So that's the thing. If you want to make it cutthroat, make it quick, lower the overall pace of the game. So if you do allow quick eliminations, then you can do that. And then our other option was, and do things like when you just little things. I would just toy with things to speed up the game, like not having the person who eliminates a person gain a new contact, but still having everybody else have to
Discard.
expose or
Have to expose
discard a
somebody.
contact would also speed up the game a little bit more, and get the bidding and getting to the point where people are playing and defending and bluffing and just really moving quickly without worrying about somebody just dying too quickly. Then the other option is the other option would be to make the game longer, which like Colin would like to. We'll have Colin speak out on for a second here, just talking about making it a more strategic game, so it's a longer experience, like your Risk or Monopoly or something like that, where if you play it for a long period of time, you don't mind getting eliminated because everyone's still got to play for long.
Yeah, I want to speak to you as a fellow Magic player. We can see that
Right, your
based on
prototype.
even your rules saying tapping, and I need a new phrase for this, which
Right.
there's a couple things you could do. You could do just activate or exhaust or use. So those are some things for that. But as a Magic player, I don't know if you play Commander. Maybe you're a Standard player. If you're a Standard player, that's more like the fast pace. You
Right.
want to do that super quick. That's more love letter, what we're talking about. But I'm a Commander player, and I like a long game. So obviously, you start off with 40 health. In this game, your contacts in your front are kind of your life total. And if you want a longer game, you probably need to make the private eyes have less power, so they can't just knock you out in one turn. Maybe you have multiple big bosses that, one of these guys, they're all working as a team. One of these families got knocked out, but you still have two more. So it's like, okay, so I'm down one set of guys, but at least I'm not out. I'm not eliminated. I don't have to wait for maybe half an hour, or because that's probably worst case scenario.
Right.
But that's the problem, is people getting knocked out. So if you want to make it a longer game, make it harder for people to get knocked out right away, which is why you can give people more health, and you give them options like what we did for our variable game. The reason why we set those out is because we felt like you're going to know who your contacts are in this situation. If in real life you're a mob boss, you're going to have 3 people that you really trust. You're going to know what they are. And it allowed us to strategically place cards out and know that, well, if somebody gets exposed, I can use that to my advantage instead of a disadvantage and not know what's going on. In addition, when you're drawing a new one, if you're trying to increase your health, basically, gain a contact by discarding 3 cards. You could use that and have a surprise that you may have to flip over and you don't know. Maybe it's better than something you don't know about.
Well, and I also, like you were saying there, if you get to choose which cards go down here, that allows you to build a long-term strategy. So you can say, okay, these are the things. Once I start getting exposed, I have this aggressive strategy, or I have these cards I can draw, so it allows you to have more control over a longer game too.
Yeah, and it also gives the person who goes first, they can go after an aggressive strategy to maybe try to knock somebody or get as many contacts exposed as possible. But then the other players can take a more defensive. So I'm going to have a police. I'm going to use the gangsters in case somebody's trying to draw a bunch of cards early on, and set up your hand that way, and or do your lie cards or any of that. Just set up your hand the way you want it, instead of just having only 4 options and, well, I can't do anything against Private Eye, so even if I try to bluff, one person calls me out, I still lose everything. I still die.
Well, and if you have more control over your hand and your contacts, you have this feeling of more control. So you feel like, well, if I made a mistake, that was my mistake that I made, rather than being subject to chance and just getting killed outright because, well, that was the luck of the draw.
Yeah, it allows you to feel that getting better at the game will ensure that you're not going to be knocked out earlier, and developing a strategy. There's a use to it right now. There's a little bit too much chaos in this game in the beginning. Too much relies on the hand you get dealt, that you can just too easily be knocked out.
For a longer
it seems
type of
game. For a longer type of game, right? And it seems like the situation was, every time that we played, one person had enough reveal cards in hand to kill somebody from turn 1.
Round, yeah.
And at least one person at the table couldn't defend from that. And if they chose right, that person was just gone.
Yep.
And there wasn't too much of a risk of playing those cards. Like, it wasn't really... So, like, yeah, just 2... You could play 3 or 4 Private Eye on a person with just 2 cards, which isn't overplaying your hand at all. Like, that's not going all in at all. But it's enough to kill a person if they just didn't draw a police. And you only get 3, you only get 4 cards initially dealt to you. So maybe more cards, or maybe if you're later in the turn order, you get more cards, so you can more likely have defense cards.
Yeah, starting greater hand is just a really good idea.
Yeah, there's just too big of an opportunity as is to eliminate someone early for a long form game now. And if you want a long form game, you need to get rid of that possibility.
of the early on
Right.
elimination.
If you want a faster paced game of taking people out quickly where you can do that, I would then try and shorten the game and try and have people play, best 2 out of 3 or something like that. So so you're expecting to get through rounds quickly, and it's okay to lose quick and then get back in for another round.
Yeah, so like decreasing numbers on your cards is
Right.
going to shorten the game, and increasing them. Well, it depends
Right.
on
Well, it
which
depends.
cards.
Maybe
Like
let
your
people
card
draw
draw,
more. Right.
your card draw ones. If the higher that is, the longer the game's going to be, because that increases people's options. The greater the police you have, that's going to create the game to be longer, because
Right.
they can go against the private eyes. Private eyes, up or down, it's going to change the length.
Yeah.
So you can mess with that.
But I think overall we all very much enjoyed the game.
There is
And,
one more
yeah.
thing that I wanted to pitch in that I think would be very important to include that I noticed, and it was only on my first game that I noticed this, that there is a bit of a learning curve with knowing what a gangster does, knowing what a private eye does, knowing what
Absolutely.
all of the different things do. And so on my first game, I was dealt not every one of the types of cards, and so I didn't exactly know how the cards interacted with each other, so I couldn't adequately lie. So if Adam had said something like, "Oh, I'm playing a gangster," and I didn't have a gangster in my hand, I was like, I have no
I don't know
idea
what a gangster is.
I don't know what a gangster does. I don't know why he would be playing a gangster, so I don't know if he's lying or
Right.
not about it, so I can't do anything. A simple fix is that you need reference cards or some sort of thing that
Definitely.
allows you to see quickly, these are all the cards you'll encounter, this is a brief description of what they can do, just so even if I don't have those in my hands, I can be like, yep, okay, I know what he's going for, I understand it better.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. It's impossible to bluff even that first attack. I attacked Adam on our very first turn, and Adam's like, I don't even know what to lie to tell you that I can defend myself. He's like, what defends from what you're doing?
You could come up with some
Right.
random card that doesn't even
Exactly.
exist in the game and be
Right.
like,
And
all
he-
right,
and-
well,
and
that
I'm-
happens. And then
yeah.
you could just start drawing like 5 cards and be like, well, I said this. And it,
Right, exactly. And it's for that very first game. Yeah, you're just going to say, once we got into the flow of it, it was fine. We got it. But those first couple turns or those first few turns before you feel you have enough information to actually lie about what's going on. If you get attacked, you need to lie and say, oh, I block it with 2 police. But if you don't know, oh, what blocks that? Police. Okay, I have 2 of that.
2 of whatever
Yeah.
blocks that.
Yeah, that's what I got. I
Two
swear.
anti-spy, and you're just like, well, I actually don't know that anti-spy is not a card, so
It
I
creates-
guess, yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
true
yeah.
because I wanted to lie about being
Yeah.
busy because I was like, that's a cool card, but I forgot what the actual
name of
text
it
of
was.
the card
Yeah.
was, and if
Yeah.
I got it wrong at all, I knew I was going to get called out, so I
Right.
just didn't even bluff
Yeah.
because I couldn't remember I'm busy, and that was in that was in our second game, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It creates this barrier or this gap between experienced game players and the novice players. So you don't want that. You want people to be on the same playing field, I would imagine. And at least in the first game, we had not all played it together. So we
Yeah.
were all like, yeah, I don't know what blocks that. Or, yeah, I know what that blocks.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell me what blocks it.
Tell
and
me
I'll
what you
call
think
out.
blocks it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I think that's fair. And and that's less of an issue also in a short game if we can just play 1 5-minute hand and everybody can learn the rules from that.
Yeah.
So going back to Love Letter, I don't really teach people how to play Love Letter. I'm like, we're just going to play a hand. It doesn't count. You'll pick it up as we go along, and by the time we're done, everyone will be okay with the rules.
But
and
even
we
Love
can move
Letter
on.
has that reference.
Right,
card.
but even Love Letter does have that reference card because
exactly,
that
it
has to
doesn't-
do
not
with
as
bluffing.
necessary, but yeah.
It tells you the quantity.
Yes.
yeah,
For
it's
the bluffing
helpful.
purposes.
It's very helpful.
So depending
I
on how
still
much
use it.
information, I think that because we're discarding face down, he doesn't want the player to have that much information.
That's probably true.
But either way, I would definitely provide a reference of these are the cards that this was what counters this is what counters this is what this does.
Yeah.
So if you want to bluff, you have just a quick reference that you can check. But overall, we think you have a very solid game. We all had a lot of fun. Just figure out to make sure that we all have a lot of fun in the same game. And you definitely have a winner here. So thank you very much, and good luck.